There are forces of good and forces of evil at work in the world today. What are these forces? Who is responsible for the good? And who is responsible for the evil? Richard Schaff talks about current events which are rarely discussed by the mainstream media, events that affect us all. This program seeks to identify, to inform, and to equip the believer for what's ahead. Welcome to What in the World is Going On?
This is What in the World is Going On. I'm your host, Richard Schaff. The program is sponsored by Lincoln Log Homes. We're pro-choice, pro-Christian, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment. We're here only by the grace of God, and we are on YouTube 24/7. Well, I see where the Rasmussen poll has Trump's approval record at a 23-month high. This was as effective last Monday, February 13th, when they rated Donald Trump's approval rating at 52%, the highest has been in almost 2 years. Rasmussen's daily presidential tracking poll shows 52% approve of Trump's job performance, 47% disapprove. Rasmussen notes this is the highest Trump's approval rating has been since March 6th, 2017, about 7 weeks after he entered office. Of interest, another Never-Trumper throws in the towel. Will wonders never cease? Eric Erickson, one of the original leaders of the Never Trump movement and the one who initiated the Never Trump hashtag, has come out saying he will vote for Trump-Pence ticket in 2020. Quoting Erickson, I'm quoting, "I will vote for Donald Trump and Mike Pence. And, to be clear, it will not be just because of what the other side offers, but also because of what the Trump-Pence team has done. They've earned my vote." Probably not many here care what Erickson has to say, but look at this conversation as just another straw in the wind pointing to a Donald Trump win in 2020. Other straws blowing in the same direction are Trump's knockout State of the Union speech, his massive rally in El Paso, the Rasmussen poll we just covered, showing over 50%, and the total lunacy of that's captured the Democrat Party. Regarding this last point, the Democrats are self-destructing. What is particularly delicious about this is that their lapdog media are encouraging the party's suicide. How, you ask? Well, they give such prominence to the empty suit like Robert Francis O'Rourke, that's Beto to you and me, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a truly certifiable loon. No doubt the media think that by doing this, they're pushing the dial further to the left. Well, they're dead wrong. Rather, what we're seeing at play is a case of the ancient wisdom of the Eupedes, who's attributed with the insight, quote, "Those whom the gods wish to destroy, they first drive mad." I love this guy. Who am I talking about? Pastor Jeffries out in Texas. He says, and I'm quoting, "Evangelicals who oppose President Donald Trump are spineless morons." This according to Southern Baptist Pastor Robert Jeffrey in a new interview. Speaking on the Todd Starnes radio show, Jeffries, senior pastor at First Baptist Church of Dallas, did not hold back. "Let me say this as charitable as I can. These never-Trump evangelicals are morons. They are absolutely spineless morons, and they cannot admit that they were wrong." A quote from Pastor Jeffries. He said Trump is tackling the issue of abortion head-on as Democrats walk to make the procedure legal at every phase of a pregnancy. "This is an issue of life and death," Jeffries said. "This is so black and white and so much about good versus evil. I don't get it. It really goes to the core of who we are as a country and what kind of a country we have in the future. If we can't get this issue of right life, I just don't know where we're going. Not down this road, I don't." Jeffries has supported Trump since the 2016 campaign and is a member of the White House Evangelical Advisory Board and the White House Faith Initiative. Well, this was really a clever move. I hope I can get it across so you understand what I'm trying to say. But anyway, Rush Limbaugh on the radio cheers McConnell for the Senate Green New Deal vote. A little background, let me give it to you. Most of you probably heard it. But Ocasio came out, I think was the first one, with this new Green Deal. What's that all about? Well, no airplanes, no cars, All buildings in the country will have to be replaced. Everybody that wants a job gets a check from the government. If they don't want one, they don't want to work, they get it anyway. Free medical care from all. It's crazy. Well, some of the Democrats who are running for the Senate jumped on board, and they like it too. So one day after McConnell said he'd hold a vote on the progressives' bill that would curb air travel, cut out all fossil fuel use, which will destroy all automobile usage, and establish additional entitlement programs, Limbaugh said the move was a stroke of genius. McConnell, quote, called for a vote in the Senate on the Green New Deal, and the Democrats are going crazy. Ed Markey, a U.S. Senator from Massachusetts, is the Senate co-sponsor of the Green New Bill with Ocasio-Cortez, and he's livid that McConnell is calling a vote on it, according to Limbaugh, expressed on a radio show last Wednesday. Here's McConnell saying that you guys say we've just got 12 years of survival. That's what they're saying, will only last 12 years. Well, McConnell says we better get a vote on this. I mean, clearly, the turtle is trying to kill us, and they understand it, Limbaugh added, using his nickname to describe McConnell. Limbaugh was referring to McConnell as the turtle. The resolution was introduced by freshman Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat of New York. Republicans and even some Democrats have set its aggressive goals to eradicate fossil fuels within a decade and redo every home and building during that same period to use green energy are impossible to meet. By the way, a little side note here. Amazon was getting ready to settle one of their 2 new plants up in New York City. I guess it's kind of a stressed out area, low economics, needed some help. They were coming in to provide several hundred jobs that pay $125,000 a year or more. But New York State did what every state does. It wants a big company to come in. They gave them a little tax refund, didn't charge them property taxes or something. Anyway, that's what happened up there. And good old Ocasio, she thinks that was terrible that the state of New York would waive taxes to a big company, even though they're going to supply millions of dollars a year in income. Just didn't tally for her. So she was raising you-know-what about it. What happens on Valentine's Day? Amazon, without notice, just announces, we're giving up on New York and going to Tennessee. I think it's Nashville that was second on the list, and that's where they're going to build their second plant. Governor Cuomo, a well-known liberal, and you know about Mayor de Blasio. Well, they're nuts over this thing. They're nuts and upset with Ocasio-Cortez and bringing it all up. They could see through that it was a good thing, but not the young lady from New York City. And what are the Dems doing right now? What are they doing in the House of Representatives as our president is trying his best to get rid of some of the graft, to get our country right, to get our jobs back? Well, the Dems, they're laying the groundwork for impeachment. An article from Doyle McManus, the Los Angeles Times, points it out. Last week, no fewer than 6 committees of the House of Representatives were investigating potential grounds for impeaching President Trump. They don't use the word impeachment. Their instruction from House Speaker Pelosi are to describe their work in narrower, less inflammatory terms. But the question is never far away. Does Trump's record of norm-busting, rule-bending, and apparent law-breaking, from conflicts of interest to murky connection with foreign governments, justify removing him from office? Well, we got to see what the facts are, Pelosi said recently. We shouldn't be impeaching for a political system, and we shouldn't avoid impeachment for a political reason. We'll just have to see how it comes out. Call this phase pre-impeachment. Pelosi and her committee chairs, all Democrats, of course, are doing what they need to make impeaching Trump possible. The Speaker and her allies describe a 2-step process before any impeachment can succeed. Step 1 is gathering conclusive evidence of misconduct. That's high crimes and misdemeanors, the Constitution says. Then these have to be serious enough to warrant articles of impeachment. That might be the easy part. Step 2 would be persuading the public that impeachment is a warranted and building bipartisan support in Congress, especially in the Republican-controlled Senate. There, folks, it'll get tougher. If only one party's involved, Democrats kind of risk the sort of disaster Republicans faced when they impeached Bill Clinton back in '98. They saw him acquitted in the Senate and then watched their own popularity plummet. The House Democrats have held majority for a little more than a month, so step one's only beginning, in Congress at least. But they lost no time in getting underway. It's going to be hard to keep the probe separate. A Pelosi aide convenes a weekly meeting just to keep track of overlapping lines of inquiry. Let me show you what's happening. The House Intelligence Committee under Adam Schiff will investigate whether Trump or his family has been compromised by Russia, Saudi Arabia, or other actors. Financial Affairs under Maxine Waters of California will help Schiff look into potential money laundering by the president's family-run company. Judiciary under Jared Nadler of New York is prosing possible violations of campaign law. Oversight under Elijah Cummings is investigating foreign payments to Trump's businesses. Foreign Affairs under Elliot Engel of New York is probing White House attempts to relax sanctions on Russian oligarchs. Ways and Means under Representative Neal may seek Trump's tax returns, which the president has refused to reveal. The investigative flurry got the president's attention. Presidential harassment, he wrote on a Twitter last week. Trump chiefly targeted Schiff, who he castigated for, quote, looking at every aspect of my life, both financial and personal, even though there is no reason to be doing so. Never happened before, end quote. Trump has long argued that his financial dealings and his family-run business empire should be off limits. The special counsel, Robert Mueller, appears to have avoided that red line. But Schiff says Congress isn't bound by it. They're going after him anyway. We need to know that the president is acting in our national interest and not in some family interest, and not because Russia or someone else has leverage over him. This is a quote from Adam Schiff. He described his probe as, quote, a counterintelligence investigation to determine whether foreign regimes have undue influence over our president. There are a lot of disturbing allegations out there, he said, but like Pelosi, he argues it's way too early to impose a resolution of impeachment. Like Pelosi, he insisted any move to impeach the president is going to have bipartisan support or it'll fail. Some Democrats are more impatient. California billionaire Tom Sear, a billionaire, is vowing to put many, many billions of dollars in to spend money in next year's Democrat primaries to punish members of Congress, including committee chairs who don't move as quickly as he would like. For anyone rooting for impeachment, the House is already doing what it needs to do, investigating. It's putting Trump in more danger than before, something he seems to understand, judging from his tweets. And now to our border. It truly is a national emergency. I'm going to talk to you about something that's happening over in Europe, the country of Hungary, to be exact. You say, why are you talking about what's happening in Europe? We've got enough problems here. Yeah, listeners, but a lot of times what happens in Hungary or other parts of Europe today comes to the United States tomorrow. Well, the Hungarian Prime Minister announces new loan and tax measures to boost the birth rate of Hungarian nationals. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban announced last Sunday a raft of new taxes and loan benefits for families as part of the effort by the government to increase the birth rate while holding a hard line against immigration. Orban is one of the most unspoken critics of mass immigration to Europe from the Middle East and Asia. He also said that his government aimed to keep economic growth 2% above the European Union average in the coming years, despite an expected global slowdown. There are fewer and fewer children born in Europe. For the West, the answer to that challenge is immigration. For every missing child, there should be one coming in, and then the numbers will be fine, he said in his annual State of the Union speech. But we don't need numbers in Hungary. We need Hungarian children, he said. He announced a 7-point program of benefits for families and for newlyweds. The new measures include the expansion of a loan program for families with at least 2 children to help them buy homes, subsidies for car purchases, and waiving personal income tax for women raising at least 4 children. Women below 40 who marry for the first time will be eligible for a $10 million, that's $36,000 subsidy loan. A third of the debt will be forgiven when a second child is born, and the entire loan will be waived after the third child. This is an answer for Hungarians, not immigration, Orban said. Now, follow this article. It shows some of the reasons that this is necessary. You know what's happening in Europe. I'm going to tell you a few things in an upcoming article here. You know what would be good for the U.S.? Maybe we ought to worry a little bit more about helping bring about American-born replacements in our population. Noted constitutional scholar Alan Dershowitz, in the latest on the McCabe dust-up. Well, McCabe's trying to sell his book, folks. He's got a lot of interest. Let me interject this. Just bring it in here. McCabe has reported that the 25th Amendment talks could be a coup. That according to Alan Dershowitz. If former acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe is telling the truth with his claims that officials in the Department of Justice discussed using the 25th Amendment to remove President Trump from office, that could be considered an attempted coup. This a statement from Harvard Law Professor Emeritus Alan Dershowitz. He said it last Thursday. McCabe confirmed for the first time in a CBS interview that there were high-level discussions at the Justice Department about recruiting cabinet members to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from office in the aftermath of former FBI Director Comey's firing. The discussions are also including speculation about which cabinet members could be on board for the idea. McCabe revealed this in an interview with CBS Scott Pelley for 60 Minutes, and it's going to be on this Sunday, today, as you're listening to this program. Let me point out that only cabinet members can call or vote on articles of impeachment. McCabe was a sub-cabinet. He wouldn't even get to count. McCabe, who was fired from the FBI last March, also said he ordered an investigation into whether Trump obstructed justice as a way to preserve ongoing inquiries into Russian election meddling in this case. The 25th Amendment is about Woodrow Wilson having a stroke, Dershowitz told Tucker Carlson on Fox News. It's about a president being shot, not being able to perform his office. It's not about the most fundamental disagreements. It's not about impeachable offenses. He added that if any Justice Department official commented the amendment in connection with Trump, that they connected it, that person will have committed a grave, grievous offense against the Constitution. This, according to Dershowitz. Trump quoted Dershowitz in a tweet after the retired professor told Carlson about that trying to use the 25th Amendment to try and circumvent an election is a despicable act of unconstitutional power grabbing. This happens only in third world countries. You have to obey the law. This is an attack on our system and on our Constitution. That's why you need 2/3 in the House and 2/3 in the Senate agreeing. And it has to be on the basis of medical or psychological incapacity and not on the basis of even the most extreme crimes, which there's no evidence were committed, said Dershowitz. But even if there were, it would not be the basis for invoking the 25th Amendment. Well, since then, since McCabe found out that he may be in trouble himself for proving his point, trying to sell books, of course, he's backwalked a whole bunch of this, and he's pointed out now that this was just general conversation. By the way, McCabe and Rosenstein, who was appointed to this, as I said, are not cabinet members. Only cabinet members can invoke the 25th Amendment. And I heard on television last night, very forceful, and you didn't stutter, folks, our Vice President, Mike Pence. Yeah, he's in the cabinet. He's Vice President. He said he never even heard of it coming about. So much for that. Now I want to go back where we were. You see, in spite of all that we've got going on, all the grief that's being brought on our president, he's trying to save America. And I'm going to point out what's happening in Europe to you now with the immigration situation. And this is what our president is trying to save America from. This is why we need the wall. This is why the wall is a national emergency. A nurse in Germany sends a message that describes the Camp of the Saints as the present-day situation in Germany. In Europe, truthful information about the Islamic immigrants forced on Europe by the EU, Merkel and George Soros, is considered a hate crime and is forbidden. Marine Le Pen, leader of a large political party in France, has been indicted for merely publishing photos of brutal murder victims of Islamists. Frustrated by the imposed silence, a Czech woman, self-described as a nurse in Germany, provides this description. Yesterday at the hospital, we had a meeting about the situation here and the other Munich hospitals and how they are unsustainable. Clinics cannot handle the number of migrant medical emergencies, so they're starting to send everyone to the main hospitals. Many Muslims are refusing treatment by female staff, and we women are now refusing to go among the migrants. Relations between the staff and the migrants are going from bad to worse. Since last weekend, migrants going to hospitals must be accompanied by police with canine units. Many migrants have AIDS, syphilis, open tuberculosis, and even exotic diseases that we in Europe don't know how to treat. If they receive a prescription to the pharmacy, they learn they got to pay cash. This leads to unbelievable outbursts, especially when it's about drugs for the children. They abandon the children so the pharmacy staff and leave them with these words, "So cure them yourselves." Well, the police are not only guarding the clinics and hospital, but also the large pharmacies. We ask openly, where are all those who welcomed the migrants in front of TV cameras with those big signs at the train stations? Yeah, for now, the border's been closed, but 1 million of these Muslims are already here, and we're definitely not able to get rid of them. But where are all the people that welcomed them? Until now, the number of unemployed in Germany was 2.3 million. Now it's at least 3.5 million. Most of these people that came in are completely unemployable. Only a minimum have any education. What's more, their women usually do not work at all. I estimate that 1 in 10 is pregnant. Hundreds of thousands of them have brought along infants and little kids under 6, many emancipated and very needy. If this continues and Germany reopens its borders, I'm going my home back at the Czech Republic. Nobody can keep me here in this situation, not even for double the salary over what I could make back home. I came to Germany to work, not to Africa or the Middle East. Even the professor who heads our department told us how sad it makes him to see, but worth the read, especially the cleaning woman, who has cleaned every day for years for 800 euros, and then meets crowds of young men in the hallways who just wait with their hands outstretched, waiting for something for free. And when they don't get it, they throw a fit. She says, I don't need this, but I'm afraid that if I return home at some point, it'll be the same as in the Czech Republic. If the Germans with their systems cannot handle this, then guaranteed back home will be total chaos. You, who have not come in contact with these people, have absolutely no idea what kind of badly behaved desperados these people are, and how Muslims act superior to our staff regarding their religious accommodation. In a hospital near Rhine, migrants attacked the staff with knives after they handed over an 8-month-old baby on the brink of death, who was dragged across Europe for 3 months. The child died 2 days later, despite having received top care at one of our best pediatric clinics in Germany. The pediatric physician had to undergo surgery, and 2 nurses are recovering in the ICU. They were attacked by the Muslims. Nobody's been punished. The local press is forbidden to write about it, so we can only inform you through email. What would have happened to a German if he'd stabbed a doctor and nurses with a knife? Or if he'd flung his own syphilis-infected urine into the faces of a nurse and so threatened her with infection? At a minimum, he would have gone straight to jail and later to court. With these people, so far, nothing has happened. And so I ask, where are all these greeters and receivers from the train station? They're sitting pretty at home, enjoying their uncomplicated, safe lives. I would round up all those greeters and bring them here first to our hospital emergency ward as attendants, then into one of the building housings where migrants, so they can really look after them there themselves, without armed police and police dogs who, sadly today, are in every hospital in Bavaria. There are many reports from European medical authorities that there's a high rate of HIV and TB infection among the immigrants, and they have been permitted to overrun Europe. And high infection rates of deadly diseases that have been eradicated in Europe, we are not prepared to handle them. There are reports that 95% of the immigrants are on welfare. It's true, it gives a lie to the claim that the immigrants could boost the workforce and save European pension system. Instead, it seems that overstressed European budgets have been loaded up with more costs that will increase the threat to pensions and for the health and safety of the European people who are in their idiocy continue to support the EU concept that has compromised their sovereignty and is driving them into the ground. And you wonder, do we have an emergency in America? Don't you see what our president is trying to prevent? He's trying to prevent this overrun of border runners, illegals, many of them Muslims. He's trying to stop or control their admittance to the United States. Do you see, folks, why we need the wall? And Trump cites a challenge. He said there's 42 million Latin Americans that want to come to the U.S. right now. As President Donald Trump declaring a national emergency to address the crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border, a Gallup poll estimated 42 million Latin Americans would like to migrate to the United States permanently. Gallup poll, open borders will potentially attract 42 million Latin Americans. Trump tweeted this last Sunday, a week ago. This would be a disaster for the U.S. We need the wall now. End tweet. Gallup's 42 million estimates come from a poll that found 27% of Latin Americans' 450 million adults would like to migrate, roughly 120 million, including 35% specifying that they wanted to come to the U.S. as their desired destination. That's roughly 42 million. 42 million seekers of citizenship or asylum are watching to determine exactly when and how is the best time to make the move. That according to Gallup's Jim Clifton. He said, and I quote, "This suggests that open borders could potentially attract 42 million Latin Americans. A full 5 million who are planning to move in the next 12 months say they're moving to the United States." President Trump attempted to negotiate with the Democrats in Congress to help fund the $5.7 billion for a border wall. But Democrats were not budging, not that much, from Pelosi's insistence on money and that no money could be allocated for the wall that she deems immoral. Immoral, folks, to keep our country safe. Something I thought worth sharing with you that I received this week. What really died at Auschwitz? Here's an interesting viewpoint. The following is a copy of an article written by Spanish writer Sebastian Rodriguez and published in a Spanish newspaper. It doesn't take much imagination to figure out the message to the rest of Europe, and possibly to the rest of the world. I walked down the streets in Barcelona and suddenly discovered a terrible truth. Europe died in Auschwitz. We killed 6 million Jews and replaced them with 20 million Muslims. In Auschwitz, we burned a culture. We burned thought, creativity, and talent. We destroyed the chosen people, truly chosen, because they produced great and wonderful people who changed the world. The contribution of these people is felt all over in all areas of life: science, art, international trade, and above all, as a conscience of the world. These are the people we burned. And under the pretense of tolerance, and because we want to prove to ourselves that we were cured from the disease of racism, we opened our gates to 20 million Muslims. What did they bring us? Stupidity and ignorance, religious extremism and lack of tolerance, crime and poverty, due to an unwillingness to work and support their families with pride. They have blown up our trains and turned our beautiful Spanish cities into the third world, drowning in filth and crime. Shut up in apartments they receive free from the government they plan to murder and the destruction of their native hosts. And thus, in our misery, we've exchanged culture for fanatical hatred, creative skill for destructive skill, intelligence for backwardness and superstition. We've exchanged the pursuit of peace of the Jews of Europe and have their talent for a better future for their children. They're determined clinging to life because life is holy for those who pursue death. For people consumed by the desire for death, for themselves and others, for our children and their heirs. What a terrible mistake was made by miserable Europe. Recently, the UK debated whether to remove the Holocaust from its school curriculum because it offends the population, which claims it never occurred. If it's not removed as yet. However, this is a frightening portent of the fear that is gripping the world and how easily each country is giving in to it. It's now 70 years since the Second World War in Europe ended. We're sending this notice as a memorial chain in memory of 6 million Jews, 20 million Russians, 10 million Christians, and 1,900 Catholic priests who were murdered, raped, burned, starved, beaten, experimented on, and humiliated. Now more than ever, with Iran among others, claiming the Holocaust is a myth, it is imperative to make sure the world never forgets. This notice is intended to reach 400 million people. Be a link in the memorial chain and help carry this around the world. How many years will it be before the attack on the World Trade Center is that it never happened because it offends some Muslims in the United States? If our Judeo-Christian heritage is offensive to Muslims, well, they ought to pack up and move to Iran, Iraq, or some other Muslim country. Wake up, America, before it's too late. Plato said, and I quote, "If you do not take an interest in the affairs of your government, then you are doomed to live under the rule of fools." Do we need a wall? Do we have a national emergency? Do we want in the U.S. what they've got in Europe? Do you see what's coming if we don't build the wall? Pray for our president.